What is up, crew? Welcome to Seek the Edge podcast with me, Kelsey Lensman, where our mission, our purpose is to challenge you outside of your comfort zone to step into the God-given potential inside. And we have a woman that has stepped out of her comfort zone and is a woman that not only I consider you a friend, but I look up to you in how you just present yourself and lead in the community. And so to just start off here, Jennifer Lawson is a senior education consultant for Focus 3, which specializes in leadership development and culture training systems. She worked previously in education as a classroom teacher, building and district administrator, and an assistant superintendent, all things schools, all things schools. Right. And now as a senior education consultant, she channels that passion into facilitating workshops, coaching leaders, and helping organizations create lasting change. And she's especially dedicated to supporting women in leadership, which we'll dive into today, and the co-host of the Relentless and Real podcast. Jennifer, yes. I'm so excited to have you on.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate you asking me to be here today. Very excited.
We talked about before, I gave you none of these questions.
No questions.
None of these questions. So you have no idea what's coming at you, which is the best type of podcast.
Yes, that's right. My only request was it could not be about Algebra 1, Algebra 2, or anything science or social studies.
I was like, you're bringing it back to middle school, high school.
That's right. Those were my only boundaries. So.
That's amazing. Well, I wanted to share your bio to kind of get people introduced to you. But there's the real story of how I got to know you, which says more about you as a person. And this would have been at least 4+ years ago at this standpoint. And I led a coaching group for women, and we still do with nutrition and fitness. But we were having a retreat here in Columbus, Ohio. And I was thinking of, man, who do I want to have come speak at this? And who do I want to have come pour into these women? And if you know me, I'm very picky about who I surround my community with. So as I was thinking about this, I had the idea of like, oh, what about Tim Kite and the Focus 3 principles of the E plus R equals O? And I personally first got aware of it with somebody that I was with that played football at Ohio State, and that is they eat, sleep, and breathe E plus R equals O. So then I started reading the book, listened to the things on YouTube. So I was like, you know what, you just got to shoot your shot. Like, let's see where this can go. And so I did an inquiry on your guys' website, and that's how I initially got connected with you. And I was, Jennifer, at the time, I was probably early, mid-20s, like this baby starting out. And you hopped on a call with me, and we talked about this, and I had really no idea fully the extent of what you all do and the level at which you all operate. And you were so comforting and open to, man, tell me about your mission. Tell me about what you want to do here. And you traveled all the way, an hour, would not allow me to pay you a dime, and just poured into our women. And that says more about just what you teach, more about who you are. And so personally for me, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
And I'll never forget that, because that was so impactful of she's not literally not allowing me to pay her a dime. And you could get paid a decent amount for this. So it just says so much about your character.
Well, I appreciate that. It was a great day. You did a great job with that event.
Yeah.
So I was happy to be a part of it.
It was special. So let's start here.
Okay.
Is with what you have done, and not just from a professional standpoint, but also personal. You're a mom, you're a wife. What are the top 2 lessons that you've learned developing yourself as that leader professionally, but also personally for you?
Top 2 lessons. I think the first one, and I mean, I think with all lessons, they're like always a work in progress, but I think the first one is, and I know that there's a saying behind it, and I never would get it right, but is this going to matter in 3 days, 3 weeks, 3 months, 3 years? And really putting those things in the priority bucket that it deserves. Because in the moment, it can feel all-consuming. It can feel like your worst day. It can feel like the worst event. It can feel, and it starts to become overwhelming, like you're not going to be able to see your way out of it, personally and professionally. And to be able to just take a breath, that pause point, whatever that is, and really be able to identify, it's bad now. right? Or it feels heavy now, but how long is this going to feel heavy? And really be able to work through it. And then the other part for me, and I've done this with my daughter, is at the end of the day, what's the worst case scenario? You know, like if this all goes bad, what's the worst thing that's going to happen? And then let's go from there. And it's not that I'm this, you know, like negative or dark cloud kind of person, but if that's the worst thing that's going to happen, you know, out of this event, or we can handle it. You know what I mean? We got this. And then we go from there. And that's a big one. I think, you know, because those two kind of go together. The other one is to really be able to own that mistakes are back. You know, because I, as a perfectionist and someone who I would say that I do love learning. We just talked about podcasts. I listen to them. Music. Yes. I listen to them to learn. You know, I mean, I've taken, I'm a notary randomly. You
Wait, you are a notary?
Yes, because
I know who to go to now.
I'm like, you know, what classes could I take? So I added that. I did the real estate class, like travel agent. I mean, you name it. Like I was like, I just like to learn and consume information. But I'm a perfectionist, and I want everything done a certain way. I have certain standards, so I had a really hard time with making mistakes. And when I did make them, I didn't want to make them publicly. And I really had a hard time taking it as feedback, because all I took it as was, you make that mistake. And I would say to myself, oh, I'll never make it again. That'll be the only time that mistake ever happens. If that's the mentality, you're not learning from it. All you're doing is saying, if it doesn't happen again, okay, well, then how are you going to fix it and move on? You know? But you have to own all parts of it. And so I feel like that was a huge lesson. And again, professionally and personally, because I was almost okay personally making mistakes, but professionally I couldn't handle it. You know what I mean? Which kind of goes back to a Focus 3 situation, where if we're giving our best professionally, we need to be willing to do that same thing personally. And I was not doing that, and have had lots of periods of my.
Yeah. That's interesting that you bring up almost that fear of failure to some extent, because it's definitely talked about a lot now. But when we are in our quiet room by ourselves, there's no extra noise, not our podcasts on, and we get incredibly honest with ourselves, like, what are we afraid of? That can come up so often. And there's a level of self-awareness that's needed to have, that you need to have within yourself, to not run away from that fear, but see it for what it is. Like you said, don't get emotional with it and then wallow of, oh, I'm never going to amount to anything, or, oh, I can never step into where I feel like I'm called to step into. But for you and your journey, how has self-awareness played into that, or how has that developed? Have you always been that type of woman, or has that evolved over time?
The self-awareness piece, I don't know that I really understood it until I saw it play out in my daughter.
Interesting.
I think when I would say self-aware, it was more, I would recognize it, but then it was that immediate just perfectionist tendency is I'll just make it better. So it wasn't really, I want to say there was a lack of self-awareness, but definitely not formed. But then I would see it in my daughter. And I would say to my husband sometimes, like, I don't know why she does that. You know, I don't know why she gets so nervous the first time she goes to a practice or the first time she tries something. I don't know why she's afraid to not be the best in the room. I mean, she wouldn't be okay with just being okay. It was like she had to go to one practice and she wanted to be the absolute best. And it would be devastating to her. Or we would do one thing and she would come home and it would be like, okay, so now, you know, how do I get this plan to do all of these things? And I'm like, why can't she just enjoy it? And he'd be like, I don't know. I wonder where that came from.
Have you looked in the mirror recently?
And I'm like, I don't do that. And he's like, you don't?
It's fascinating.
Because there would be times that I would come home from work and I'm like, you know, I just want a job where I clock in, I clock out, and I don't have any of the responsibilities. I don't have to be in charge. And he's like, that would last about 2 weeks.
I feel so convicted right now.
You know what I mean? That would last about 2 weeks, and then you would be like, we could do this. He's like, you do that with like fundraisers. Like you think you need to be in charge of the mum sale because there's a better way of doing it. And I'm like, you're right. You're right. Amazing. Why it's so bad? But it is kind of, it is who I am, but I didn't recognize that, which I know probably sounds wild, but I didn't recognize that until I saw it in her and realized that like I had created that in her by her just watching me, because I wasn't outwardly like teaching her that, but she had just watched my behavior. And then I'm like, oh, I do that, And so I think then that's really what spawned me being much more aware of it.
It's so interesting. We start with this because I'm in the process of writing a book right now. And it's all about pursuing the nudges, like kind of the God-given, what ifs in our lives that so often we could completely shut down because of fear of failure or fears in whatever capacity it is. And as I was writing, I just finished chapter 2, which it is still very beginner right now. But as I was writing chapter 2, it's not just, okay, work hard, overcome your fears. There is an extent where we can't listen to those fears and we do need to still take action. But I at least know for me is I then operated to this end of the spectrum of completely ignore why those fears are here, completely ignore what kind of things they're trying to tell me and just take action through them, which for me created this, I can bullhead my way through anything, as I'd imagine you can. Like we are hard workers, we'll put our nose down and we'll go. What I've really had to grow in, Jennifer, over this last year, I would say, is getting more emotionally in touch with myself and trying to really understand, well, why did those fears exist in the first place? What not necessarily what happened, but why is that fear there? And now what does it mean about me that I'm so afraid of pursuing that thing? And I'm telling you, as I, yes, still took action, but then took a time to pause to do more of that. All right, well, why is this? What's it trying to tell me? The freedom that has come from that has been incredible. And I had no idea I had such a fear of being vulnerable with people. And I just shut that piece of it off. And there's definitely on social media, there's a place now of don't tell your deepest, darkest fears to social media in every capacity. I think that can be weaponized and is not beneficial. But as leaders, not just in business, but also in our life, people rely on us for a lot. And sometimes it's hard for me to also allow this side of Kelsey to still work through the process openly when I feel like I need to show up for a lot of people and be that kind of stronger version. So have you wrestled with that at all or not necessarily?
It's so funny. I mean, that's probably the most repeated feedback I get on my evaluation is you need to be vulnerable. You need to be willing to show that you make mistakes and let people see how you work through them. I am not a particularly warm person. I mean, my team jokes about it. I don't hug. It is a running joke. And I just, instead of dealing with the emotional side, I just fill it with stuff. Yeah. I just stay busy. I do other things, I think there's a meme out there that says like, don't hug me, but if you need a kidney, I got it. I mean, because that is the most perfect way to describe me, But yeah, I would say that it is definitely not an area of comfort for me. Yeah. One, I do keep, my circle very close in terms of like who I'm willing to share any information with. But I don't want people, especially, I feel like it was one of those things that if I'm leading the team, I want them to have full confidence.
I'm the same way.
And I just, even if I don't know what I'm doing, I'm okay saying to them, this is my first time doing it. Like, that's about as vulnerable as I get. Then the rest of it, I wanted them to see, like, I'm just going to work hard. I'm going to figure it out. If it's a new skill I have to learn, I'm going to learn it. Like, I want to model that part of the success of that, but not the mistake part. So
Yeah.
that I would say is definitely an area that would be a huge edge
Yeah.
for me still.
Yes, and which
Yes.
leads into what you shared. And I don't want to give obviously all Focus 3's content. Go on socials. You guys are cranking on social media and doing just amazing podcasts and with all the media piece of it. But when you spoke to our women, it's so fitting that the podcast is called Seek the Edge, because I did not have that 4 years ago.
Right.
But you talked about the edge. And what I've realized through this past year and a half, and also it's come from me growing in my faith, is my edge used to be physical. Oh, do that physical hard thing. And I still do those things. I still love setting big goals. But my edge was opening up more to people around me or myself. My edge was, okay, getting understanding and being able to be vulnerable more than I ever did. So can you talk to me about the concept of the edge that is so fitting of what exactly I talk about as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So the edge is sort of this metaphoric place where, you're at the brink of something, whether it be, a decision in life or, something new that's coming or any of those things, right? And you might have to, make some tough decisions, learn a new skill, perfect a skill that you thought you had at one time that is now no longer relevant and it needs a change. And, we during workshops, we physically say that, it's this place where you don't know what's on the other side. It sometimes, like you're here now and there's this, what could be, and then there's the gap in between. And for some people, there's a very clear direction on the other side, a very clear picture. For other people, it's not. And the problem is that you've got some people that, start and are ready to go, and then they get so far and they're like, oh gosh, there's nobody here with me. I'm really proud of how far I've come. I'm going to stop here. And they get right to the edge, like right to the edge of the edge, if you will, and then there are some people that are like, I'm actually good where I am. If something needs to move me, or they'll drag me, or something like that. It's a very, very small percentage of the population that actually are willing to proactively break through the edge, because it's a skill. It requires a skill, and not a skill that we're born with, a skill that we have to learn and get better at. And it requires making mistakes, getting feedback from people. I mean, it requires those kind of things that people aren't comfortable with. And then to know that as soon as you break through one, you have to break through another and another, because there's not just one edge.
Oof.
So it's the edge for us is Focus 3 for us is really, it's the pinnacle of everything that we teach. All of those skills build so that you're prepared, that when these edges come, you've got a skill set, a true skill set to be able to break through that.
Why would you say it's important to break through that edge? Like what's the benefit?
Because most people feel like, I'm going to stay in my comfort zone. We use that term all the time, comfort zone. And there's no comfort. And, we demonstrate it by saying, there are things that you're good at today that you weren't good at 3 weeks ago. And think about the growth that has happened. But the edge is something a lot more than just that slow, small, daily 3-week shift. This is more intentional. To get you to where you really want it, and that's personal, professional, physical, emotional, whatever battle you're facing. It's a little bit more intentional. Just that passive shift.
Yeah, definitely. Do you have an example of an edge in your life that it's taken, I'm a little bit nervous to go past it? And if so, what was going through your head?
So I think it's funny. I would have said, one of the things that we talk about is control in our content, and that we don't control events. We only can control how we respond to them. But as a control aficionado, someone that would, if I always say if I can't control it, I like to micromanage it.
That's amazing.
But I have to like say to myself all the time, I do not control this. I do not have control over this, But as someone who had a really hard time with that concept, I would have said, if you would have asked me even a year ago what an edge would have been for me, I would have said something like that. But that would have been because I could have controlled I would have thought I could have controlled all aspects of it, so that my edge would have been something that would have been this beautiful story to get to the others, But in true reflection, and the interesting part of this is, as we were having conversations internally, and I'm starting to truly be reflective of it, I think the edge for me was something personal. So I've had a really hard time with trusting people. And because I've had a hard time with trusting people, it has created huge relationship barriers for me. And I would say, in personal, intimate relationships most, because it starts with that trust, and then it moves into self-talk, which are all those stories that you tell yourself, and then that creates action that is all bad, But it prevents you from being able to live in any capacity that brings joy. Because if you're constantly worried about all these other things, then you can't be focused on your own stuff, And an edge for me was recognizing that I don't control events. I don't control other people. And that trust is built on recognizing that you don't have control over them. And that you have to make the decision, your response, deciding whether you're going to, remain in that relationship or with that person, or, have that or not. And then the edge is recognizing that you don't control those. And it's hard. I mean, that was a hard one for me, because I wanted to be able to not do that, you know what I mean? Or allow that to but there was just so much of my life that I allowed, the self-talk and the negative energy and all of that to just play a role in it for years of my life. And I just had to get to the place where, like, I don't control that.
Ooh.
So if something
how does that
happens,
feel in your body? As you say that, how does that feel?
It's so hard. But I had to do both of those things. Like, well, one, I don't control that person. I don't control those events. Right. And worst case scenario, I'll get through it. I mean,
you tough. Know what I was very similar to you. Is I think for me, the control for me is more safety. If I can control it, then I can predict where this is going to go. And it wasn't until last August, when I had my car accident, that it gave me the epiphany of, I am not in control. And I've shared a little bit about this before, but as I was driving on the highway and that car hit me and I started flipping, there was nothing in that moment, or even that I could have done before, that would have predicted the outcome to be different than what it was. There was no way that I could have turned my wheel that would have prevented me from flipping. There's no, I was in a spot which was so scary that I was completely controlless, completely powerless. And if you would ask the me 6 months prior, that would have shook me to my bones. But it sounds so odd to say, Jennifer, but because I was in a situation that I was so out of control, it allowed me to have the perspective of, it's been an illusion this entire time.
Yes.
It's been an illusion this entire time of me thinking, yes, we can control our actions, right? And we have to take responsibility for what we're doing or not doing. And I'm not just saying eat Cheetos on your couch 24/7.
Right.
However, I think especially for women like you and I that can be on the side of wanting to control a little more, I think many people do. It wasn't until that scenario that I had to let go and look to the person. For me, it was Jesus. That was the only thing that I could do, was call on his name to make the outcome be anything better. And I had to go back to what you said, trust that whatever will be, will be. And it wasn't until that one scenario that it's almost like my eyes were closed and then my eyes were open of, I have been living under this lie the entire time. And I'm telling you, ever since that moment, once again, I still focus on being proactive, as you guys talk about.
Right.
I still focus on the things that I can control, but I've been praying so much more. I have been trusting so much more, personally and professionally. And before, that was so tough for me, so tough. So I thought it was interesting how when you talk about control, I really never understood it until that moment. And I'm like, man, but I still revert back to patterns of worry, of and I experienced it. And even after, as I was sitting in the hospital, I started bawling because I felt so grateful that he spared my life that night. I was like, I pray that I never forget this feeling. And then a week went by and I was looping again. Well, what about this? What about this? Kelsey, you just had this literally life or death experience where you learned about control. But we go back to our nature so quickly.
Yeah. I mean, it's why, we talk about it all the time. The concepts that we teach are simple.
Which
They're
are
not
amazing.
easy.
Yes.
But they're simple. Like that concept of 20 square feet. It's, my daughter did an activity when she was in 5th grade on the concept of 20 square feet. What is in your sphere of ownership and control? And I joke, she had things like, outside of her sphere of ownership and control, things like, the lunch menu and the cat, and inflation and, all the things. But it's accurate, easy concept on paper, but it's hard in practice. It's hard when you start thinking about things like safety,
right?
Other people's actions when it comes to trusting relationships. I mean, that's hard. And it's hard to say things like, I do not have control over that.
Yeah.
I do not have control. I mean, even for the people that practice faith, to say, oh, okay, I'm leaving it in his hands. It's to be able to, and then truly do it.
Right.
That's a disciplined behavior. That is a disciplined behavior because your pattern is to not do that.
Right.
It's to say it. It's to maybe even think it, but then all of your actions aren't, your actions aren't in alignment to that.
1,000%.
And I think sometimes people don't even realize their actions aren't in alignment because it's been your behavior for so long and you watched it maybe as you were growing up. They're your habits, they're just what you've always known. And
Talk to me a little more about that, about understanding, because you guys all do so much with behavior and culture and leadership, all of those principles, which is basically pattern recognition, is observing, oh, I've been doing these certain things. And I was actually just talking to one of my girls today is then we can tend to be emotional about it. Oh, why did I do that? Oh, I'm so frustrated. And then it keeps us stuck in those patterns because then we really over emotionalize it versus what you guys, I just love what you teach is like you said, it's easy, but it's not simple. But you take a step back and we get objective about it and you have frameworks and systems with it. So talk to me a little bit what you've seen with behaviors and patterns and just being able to cultivate becoming that better or more self-aware version.
Well, I think, one of the distinguishing things that we have really been zeroing in on is the difference between your professional and your personal. Because so many people want to identify your professional default behaviors, and are willing to get better at it and put time in and listen to podcasts on how to be a better leader. But how often are you reading a book about being a better dad or a better wife or a better friend we're not. I have read, I can't even tell you how many. I mean, I could tell you a list of books that I've read about being a better leader, and I've never read a single book about being a better mom. And who deserves that more? My daughter or the hundreds of people who I have led? The power should be there in that one person who means the most to me. And yet I have done zero to be better at that. So when we start talking about our content, for me, the shift is that this should be what you do at home. And if you get better there, sure, you'll be a better leader. You know, you'll be a better educator or better CEO, but it better start at home. So when we talk about default behaviors, I bring up the idea of habits because those are things that you grew up watching and not realizing that you have now taken them into adulthood. And the example, the funny example that I use in workshops is the silent treatment. And I always, I'm always the guinea pig for it. And I said, like, I do it and I'm great at it. I've been doing it for a long time. I've perfected it. I can go days without talking to my husband, but it's a bad habit. I have been I watched it as a young person. I have used it. I have just cut people off and that's the end, sometimes forever, it's a bad habit. And as much as I have taught this content and I have skills and I have practice skills, I know I'll do it again because it's a default behavior. It's easy. And that's what default behaviors are. They're easy. They're your go-to. They're the ones that you just pluck out of your pocket because it's what you've always done. And so it's using your right hand instead of your left, And there are so many of them. So many of them. And for some people, maybe they're not the silent treatment. Maybe they're the yeller. Maybe they're the crier. Maybe they're the, punch a wall or, you name your bad habit,
Mine's the avoider.
Yeah.
I will avoid it like the plague,
right.
Jennifer.
Yeah.
And I'll pretend it's not there until I have to face it.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had to really be aware of when are you trying to avoid, Kels, and acknowledge it. And then I do it right then. I don't wait, tomorrow will be better. No, that's my brain trying to convince me to avoid the thing that I'm trying to avoid.
Right.
It's, yes.
Yeah, and the thing is, unless you're taught another way, you don't really even know that there is another way. Or unless someone points it out to you. And somebody that it's, that trusting person that's willing to say like, hey, have you ever thought about doing this in a different way? Because you know how it's going to end. Like, you know what the outcome's going to be. I know what the outcome's going to be when I use the silent treatment to handle a problem. It's not going to be the outcome that I want ever.
Right.
And yet I still do it, So for me, that is probably one of the things that I have really just been trying to drive home is think about your personal. Do that first. Do the personal life work first and then take it into your professional. But even if you're sitting here because your work, your business brought us in, make this about you getting better.
Come on.
Not you as the leader, not you as the CEO, not you as this. Yeah. Make it about you as the person getting better.
And that'll be a ripple effect to
everywhere. Everything.
Yeah.
That you do.
So if there's somebody listening that says, oh, what you're saying is amazing. Like, yes, it's the default that I've been falling into. What are some practical ways that they can start auditing what their default behaviors are? Is that writing it down? What do you all recommend and share?
Yeah, so I definitely think and we even say it in our workshops, one of probably the least used pause points is that reflective pause. Because it's the avoidance, you want to do the whole, oh, man, I really put my foot in my mouth that time. I'm glad that's over, and then move on. And there is a skill to being reflective because you also don't want to move into that place where you're, perseverating or you're letting it spin, and you're, now going down this place of like, I'm so stupid. That was so dumb. How could I have done that? Or you're replaying the entire event moment by moment, and that,
Right.
And so I tell people, like, at the end of the day, think about some of the major events from that day. What happened? What was your response or reaction? What was the outcome? How would you do it differently the next time? Because there will be a next time. It may not look exactly like that, but it'll look like a version of that. How would you do it differently the next time? And then keep it moving, right? Keep it going. Yeah. Don't think about it forever. Don't worry about it forever. And if you're someone that tends to be the, spinner, set a timer. Like, literally, this reflection should be 5-7 minutes, not 30, you know? I used to be someone that like during yoga, I would, spend that time when you're supposed to be like really, yes. And I would be thinking about like, oh, that was so dumb. What did I do? No, don't do that to yourself. Set the timer, make it your quiet time, think about it. I don't even write them down anymore. I just want to process it very quickly, think it through, and then keep it moving. And then that's it. And I started that with my daughter in terms of like at school, like when I pick her up, I'm like, hey, what could you have done differently? Not how was school, because that's going to come up with a grumpy answer or
nothing. Like, didn't learn anything,
fine, right? But then we just keep it moving, like that reflection is so easy. And then that kind of helps you if you start to recognize patterns. And every time I'm around like my mom or, every time I'm in this scenario or every time I do this, and my outcome is this. Okay, then there's a gap. So now how do we fix that gap? And then those are the times where we would give you some other skills. Maybe now it's a predictable event. And we would teach, in our workshops or online or in any of our content, we've got some application to make those things better.
I love that because I think that's where the gap is. A lot of times, I know for me, I can listen to all these podcasts. It literally does not matter until I start to apply the concepts to it. And coming from somebody that I love learning, similar to you, I love gathering information. Like it sounds weird, but that is my jam. Like that's my fun time. What podcast, what documentary can we watch? That is my love language. And also I found myself in consumption mode and not as much in application mode. And the thing that I love about what you all do with Focus 3 is it's so applicable. And with that reflection piece, it's, okay, let's not get emotional with it. Let's get objective. But then at least I've realized in my life, when you start doing it, it needs to be intentional first. And then it just becomes how you operate. Now you quickly think, oh, what could I have done better? Oh, okay, cool. Let me take that as a data point for next time. And it just becomes this operating system for you. So, and I don't know how you all think about this, but those default behaviors, is that something that they can reprogram to then be their default, or how do you think through that?
Yes. So we would say that, you want to reprogram it so that's how you're operating. And then you do that every time, and that becomes your discipline response. So now I'm going to, instead of this, I'm going to handle it this way. And it's not to say that that's like a money back guarantee, but you have a better opportunity of getting the outcome that you want when you're operating disciplined.
Definitely.
And so again, it's just about application, but I cannot state it enough. It's not wrong that you don't have the skill set. You have to have been taught that, and the reason why I think that's such an important piece is because if you have a child or if you're around kids or young people in general, they don't have that skill. They have to be taught that skill. And I feel like it is on us to help them with that. But if we don't have that skill, we can't be giving it to them. But we have to know that there's not a point where it's like, well, they're old enough, they should have this. Well, if it wasn't taught to them, how would they have it? And I think about our content all the time, and I think about how different things could have been, even in college, had I had just a little bit of it.
Oh, I think about,
I mean, I just think like, because or how many therapy sessions I might have avoided had I just had a little bit of that content, just because I didn't know how to do any of that inner work at all, or to think about it, or, I mean, truly even to press pause or to think through like predictable events, I mean, if I can predict these things, how could I handle them differently? And like you said, thinking about it as a data point. This doesn't have to be emotional. I don't have to have emotion tied to this. It's just that. This is a business transaction and keep it going,
You move through it so much quicker. But you said a key word in there that I know me when I was starting more of my personal development journey and growth journey in general. You said the word skill. And how I thought of it was, I guess I just wasn't born that way. Whether it be confidence, some capacity, or emotional regulation, whatever that might be. That's not necessarily mine particularly. But I didn't understand it was a skill that could be built. I thought it was a quality that was just given. And that's how I thought about it so much. And I remember when I was younger, I would see these people getting in front of the class and they would just present like it was their second nature. And I'm like, man, I guess God just didn't give me that. I got the short end of the stick there. And it's so funny because now I'm the person in front and I would think the same thing about myself, but it was just a skill set that I didn't have that needed to be developed. And so I want the person listening to this to take a moment to understand it is a skill, and that if you don't have that, what you think is a quality, it's just, did you put the reps in for it yet? I don't know how to do a bicep curl. If I haven't done, last podcast I talked about bicep curls too, so I must just be in the bicep curl game. But I wouldn't be able to do 20 pounds if I've never done a bicep curl before. And it's just a reps game. And I think for me, that also unemotionalizes it, where, okay, if there's this thing that I don't have, it's not that I don't have the capability. It's not that I don't have the potential. It's not that I can't do it. It's just, have I put the reps in for it? And we can say no. And then we put the reps in.
Right. That's why, I mean, when we developed the Around the Dinner Table, which is
I saw
the
that, which I loved
for
that.
Kids. Yes, it is how parents can teach this. It's to recognize that, one, young people don't have the skill, but two, oh, by the way, parents, you might not either. And that, I'm somebody who teaches it and still trying to work through the skills myself because it's a journey, but here's how we can learn together. Parents and young people together. Here's how we can learn together, because we also, even if we're developing these personally, this is a skill set that if we do this together, our relationship is better. And we all need that. I mean, as educators, we could all say that we need better young person, parent, educator relationships. We all need those things. So that was really the motivation behind creating those modules.
Talk to me a little bit about that, because I saw that on your social. I was like, what is this?
I know. I am so excited about it. It is literally the R factor. We're teaching just a very quick, 3-minute clip of the R factor. Mm-hmm. And then we are sort of translating it in terms of, okay, so as a parent, this is how you can do this. Mm-hmm. Here are some parent skills. Mm-hmm. And then here's how you as the parent can teach that skill to your child as a elementary kid, a middle schooler, or if you have a high schooler, here's what you can do. And here's how to be mindful of their age. So one of the things that, we say to, elementary age kids or younger all the time, what were you thinking? And then they say things like, I don't know. And then we get frustrated because we think they're, lying or being evasive. And reality, they don't know. Mm. Or we say, what would you do different next time? Mm. Well, they don't know because they don't have another option in their head. And so how do we work through that? How do we give them options? How are we preparing ourselves to not get frustrated when we get a response like that from our child when they literally don't have another response? So just some things like that, but we're giving some practical. One of them, we teach box breathing as a way to
love that.
As
Talk
a way
about regulation.
Yes, because that's what it is. It is about self-regulation. Yep. So, pressing pause, we teach the box breathing is a great way to teach or, to practice pressing pause.
Right.
So that's one of the.
What are some of the more skill sets that you teach in there? Not that you need to disclose all of them.
No, we
this
do.
Is the good stuff that we have a lot of moms that listen to this. This is the good stuff.
We have a lesson for all of the mindset cycles. So 20 square feet.
Nice.
We go through, the discipline over default, no BCD.
I forgot about that, Jennifer.
We talk about that. Gosh. And that one is particularly good because we also talk about gossip and venting as part of that, especially for young people. Yeah. Especially thinking about sports and, how easy it is to fall into that trap. But then we get heavy with it. We talk about it with bullying and social media and, some heavy hitting topics that our young people are facing and how the R factor helps with that. But then we also go through the entire skill set. So we do press pause, get your mind right, taking action.
Wow.
All through. And then we talk very specifically about things like self-talk.
Yep.
And, you brought up a really good point that it's a skill set that you didn't know that you didn't have.
I had no idea.
That's because our adults in our life, our parents, they weren't talking about it.
Right.
Like, it's not like my mom wasn't like, my self-talk is saying that, I should be, doing jazzercise or whatever at the time,
Right.
It was manifesting in, I need to be dieting. I needed to be doing all of these things. So that's what I heard. I didn't hear that her self-talk was telling her a story that wasn't true, that she needed to lose weight and all of these things. I only heard the weight loss side of it, So I didn't know that in the research would say that our young people don't realize that it's self-talk that we actually control inside of our head.
Yes.
Because one, they think it's just true. And then social media helps, solidify that to them. And so then it just must be accurate. It must be right. It must just be, the truth as they know it. And that is very, very damaging.
That was the one, and I have great parents, and I still struggled with this. And so I think about those that maybe not be in such a good situation as me, and man, that would be difficult. But that was the number one thing, is I thought this thought is fact if it's in my head. And I had no idea. This was the number one breakthrough, Jennifer, for me in my fitness journey and my just growth journey in general. I could choose what thought I wanted to keep and what thought I wanted to discard. And that in of itself was mind-boggling to me, because if I thought, I'm afraid of that thing, I should never go pursue that thing. I don't think you can do this. I thought, I can't do this. And that was such a lie that I believed. And for me, holds so many people back from really stepping into not only what they can do, but what they are called to do, like what literally they are meant to pursue. But it's just these thoughts that they're choosing to listen to, when really it's just lies that we need to discard. Can you stay for about 5-10 more minutes?
Yeah.
Because I want to go into this real quick.
Yes,
I was like,
absolutely.
this is so good.
Yes.
Talk to me about self-talk.
So it is a passion point of mine.
Okay.
So there is, there's so much research out there that talks about, that up to 86% of the thoughts in our head are inaccurate or negative, and about 70% are just on a loop, meaning that we've already had them in our head, And think about then the billion-dollar industry of positive affirmations and manifestations and all of that, and what you hear is, you have to say those positive affirmations 10 times. Well, how often in a day do you say, I can't, I won't? I mean, far more than 10 times. Well, if this is the research on the positive affirmations, and yet I'm saying all these negative things more than 10 times, well, what's weighing out, right? The negative, all this negative. And so if you think about young people, to your point, that are saying like, I can't, I'm afraid, I won't, they're better than me, I'll never add up. I mean, just all of it. Yes, they're believing it.
Right.
And there's no one that's countering it. And they don't know that they can control it. They don't know it's in their head. And then again, not to pick on social media, but man, it's an easy target. Because now I'm opening up my Snap and my Insta and my all the things. And the algorithm is playing into all of that, And then as soon as I do see a negative response to something, or a negative comment, or a negative anything, I'm like, yep, that's right.
Confirmation.
They think confirmation. Oof. They think the same thing about me. And I joke in the workshops about like, okay, if the statistic about that 86% is either negative or untrue, if I were buying a car and the person selling me the car was giving me information that 86% of it was untrue, would I even buy a car?
Buying that car?
No. But then we're willing to, and we talk to ourselves more than we talk to anybody else on the planet. And 86%, I mean, that's a wild number,
right.
And we're only seeing that number get higher as a result, since they're collecting data from COVID. because our group that we were talking to was so much smaller. You know what I mean? Now, I mean, obviously that's changed, but as you know, as the data and the statistics come out, it's taking us a little bit of a while to get back from it. But it's staggering. And again, because we're not talking about it, our young people, especially, I mean, think about our middle school.
Oh, that age
so
demographic has my
wild.
heart. It's so deeply.
Yes. And then they've got the hormones and all the other parts, but it shapes who the decisions they make. It shapes who they are. And you know, obviously we've heard some really, really horrific things that have come from that negative self-talk that does not get corrected, changed, discussed in any way, because then kids carry it with them, and then and then it gets blamed on social media. But in reality, it's the addition of social media that is confirming those negative thoughts.
It compounds it. So what would you say for that person? Could be young, could be older, might be different advice that you give, that does have that really tough, negative, continual looping self-talk. What would you say to that?
So I would say it's almost twofold. The adults in our young people's lives, we have to talk about it. We have to. And it doesn't matter if it feels silly. And my daughter's always like, Mom, are you going to talk about this hippie stuff again? And I'm like, you don't even know what that is, you know? I know. Great. We joked this summer, I made her do Spanish. I made her this past summer take Spanish. And then I was like, and you're going to read The Secret? And you're going to, and I gave her this guidebook or whatever. And she finally came to me, and she was going into 8th grade. Okay. She's like, Mom, I know that you're supposed to like find yourself, but I think that's supposed to happen in college, not like going into 8th grade. And I understand Spanish more than this book that you gave me. And I was like, all right, so maybe The Secret, that was maybe too far, like going to 8th grade. Right. Okay, you're right. I'll let that
watch the movie
go.
though.
Yeah, right. So, but yeah, but it's so important to talk about it because they don't have a frame for that. So parents, educators, like I always say, any adult that's around young people, we have to talk about it. That's the first one. And then just some easy things it goes back to the predictable events. And I say, get a little Post-it, write affirmations, 3 affirmations, positive affirmations on the Post-it. Take that Post-it with you wherever you go. Put it on your Chromebook. Put it on your phone. And, you know, there's some science about writing it. So I don't want to just, you know, do it on your phone.
Yeah, don't get off the phone.
Correct. But as soon as your thoughts go negative, and I'm talking as soon, read those and say them to yourself 10 times. They have to be ready, even if you don't believe them, because it's about shifting your brain. Okay. It's the shift. That's the early stage. That's the early technique, is just the shift. And if you have to do it 100 times a day, then you hope tomorrow you do it 99 and the next day you do it 98. Because in the heat of the moment, when you are going negative, you do not have the capacity to shift back and think, okay, that's a really negative thought. Now I need to think of something positive. And, these things are positive. You have to be able to have a ready-made positive thought that you can just immediately pull from. And so it's an easy one. Start your morning, be thinking about them. I love habit stacking. So if you're habit stacking with, you know, brushing your teeth or whatever it is, think about them, write them down, take it with you, and then be willing to do that. If you are not a positive affirmation person and it's just too far outside, think of a song that you could put on repeat in your brain. And the one that I give an example of is the Baby Shark one. Right, to get stuck in your head.
No.
I know.
I'm gonna go to bed thinking that. I'm gonna text you tonight.
As soon as you start the negative, start that song.
Yep, you're breaking that loop.
You're just breaking the loop.
Yep.
And then eventually you'll get better and better and better, and be able to do all the other things. But you just got to teach yourself how to break the loop.
Yeah. This is gonna go full circle, because when I think about the negative looping and the thoughts, your statistics on point, and it is crazy to think about. But then we also have to understand our physiology is we are wired for that survival. And so your brain is constantly looking at your surroundings to try to keep you safe. And so I know many people that are, man, why do I have all these negative thoughts? And they're frustrated and mad at it, when it's your brain trying to protect you. And when we can come from a place of, okay, I can understand that it's trying to protect me. It doesn't serve me. And that doesn't mean I need to keep this looping forever, but it's just trying to protect you, even if it's not serving you right now. And that for me was, wow, I really understood it to the next, like the root cause of it, and not just take the data for what it was, but, oh, why is this happening? It is just your survival. And I wrote about this in the book, is just because you're surviving doesn't mean you're thriving. And so that's the difference with it is, yes, you can operate in survival. You're not going to be joy-filled. You're not going to be happy. And it's going to be mentally feel like a battle all the time. And this is where it goes full circle. And at least for what I've experienced in my life, is to also combat the thoughts. Yes, the affirmations are so important. Yes, the rewiring of those thoughts and the repetitiveness of it will lay such a foundation and groundwork. And you have to seek the edge and do things that are uncomfortable. So then you're now building proof that those thoughts aren't true. And I liked to think about the analogy of a table, where if we're just staying in our comfort zone all the time and, oh, I don't know, I don't think I can do that, you're constantly proving yourself that that's right. And it doesn't mean that is right. And so when we're seeking the edge, when we're stepping out of our comfort zone, this is why for me the fitness part broke this looping, because I vividly remember when I was at Ohio State, I had a barbell back squat on my back. And I was like, oh, I can only do maybe 6, maybe 70s if I'm doing well. I ended up getting 20. And in that moment, it was just that physical breaking a belief of, my brain thought I could only do 6. I did 14 more than that. And so it was data for me to understand, okay, if I thought it was this, but the truth is this, maybe there's some type of misconnection then, or some type of not taking everything as fact in my brain. And so what I want to say for those out there is, yes, break the loops. Yes, have those phrases prepared, and also prove yourself and show yourself that there is not validity to those thoughts. And sometimes only doing the uncomfortable thing and showing yourself that gives you that proof that then you can fall back on for it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I love that. So true.
Is there anything specific that's helped you with self-talk?
One, recognizing when I do it most. You know, like I know that if I'm in the car for too long, and if I'm not listening to a podcast or, you know, like certain audiobooks or even the music, something will like spark it. And then I go to like I said, like my dark place, you know, where I am looping, or I start to think about a meeting, or I start to think about something and I go. So I know for me, it's got to be engaging. So it's either a podcast, or quite honestly, I listen to books on tape and not I refer to my beach book.
No.
So because I'll be engaged. Amazing. Yeah, I'll be engaged.
What's happening
in that.
next?
Yeah, correct. I'm not gonna disconnect on that. But I know that about myself, so I have to be prepared in a way that I don't let myself go negative in that space. Right. So recognizing it, you know, is it when I'm trying something new? Is it when whatever that is? And I think for women, recognizing when you do that. Is it when you've made a mistake? Or is it, whatever it is, recognizing and being prepared for it, I think is a huge self-awareness piece, especially as we get older, because we are starting to reflect more about like our life and taking those things in. So I think for me, that's been it. And then again, I am one of those people where I do like to journal in the morning and then kind of set my intentions for the day. And so as soon as I do that, I'm like, okay, I either my go-to is either I do not control events, whether it has any connection or not, or I bring through my intentions. So for me, those are my grounding pieces.
And you have a system is what it sounds like more than anything, is you have that system to set up your brain for the day ahead. Instead of come full circle, go back to that default. That if you didn't have that system, it might be a different outcome.
Absolutely.
Man. Okay, Jennifer. Is there anything else that I didn't ask you that you feel like is on your heart to share or to think through?
I think the only thing is, and you just mentioned it, I think before I really was engaged with the work that, Focus 3 brings forward. I didn't have a system. I had bits and pieces. I was lucky enough and fortunate enough to have therapy, which I think is amazing for anybody, which gave me, some skills. But I didn't have any of that intentionally until that point. And I just think how much things would have been different for me had I had some of those. And so being able to gift that as a parent to my daughter, I think is such an advantage. And if we could do anything for our young people, especially in this world that is so, topsy-turvy right now, is to be able to provide that. And so just being thoughtful and whatever, if it's not our system, that's fine,
I'd recommend it though.
Right. But make sure that you're supporting them intentionally in some skill set, because that's what it is. It's got to be that intentional skill that helps them move forward in life, because it truly is a competitive advantage when they have a skill.
Oh, it is the number one thing. I think it's so interesting that what, for my opinion, is the number one skill set that's going to determine the outcome for you, not just in a business decision, but in life. That's the thing that is often overlooked to be taught, or maybe is not known how to teach or to teach to our young kids. So I love that you guys have dove into that. That is amazing.
March is going to be an exciting time for us. We're launching that. We have the R Factor book is coming out finally.
I didn't know you were having the book.
I know.
Oh, come on. Okay, so
and it's written by Heather. So from a female perspective, I know. Very exciting.
I'm getting my hands on that.
I know.
Oh
yes,
gosh.
not to worry. You'll get a
I'm
get a copy of
incredibly
that.
excited.
Yes.
So where can people find more about Focus 3, the R Factor, all of that, and then also you individually?
So everything is on focus3.com.
Okay.
You can access everything. Newsletter is a great place to get up-to-date information, but you can get on the waiting list for Around the Dinner Table from, that location. And then the book launch, all that information will be there too. And then, as you mentioned, we are really trying to up our game social media wise.
Doing great though.
Yeah. So people can find it through our Facebook.
And your podcast.
And our podcast. You can get that on Spotify or Apple.
Okay. We'll
Relentless and Real. And we're in season 2. So there's lots of episodes that you can go back and listen to. So,
man,
very
thank
excited.
you for not just teaching the topics, but living it. And those are two different things. You can sound great teaching it. It is another level to look in the mirror and live it. And so thank you for continually being that woman that just looks in the mirror and says, okay, where are areas I can grow? Where are areas that I'm doing well, but also where are areas that I want to give to my daughter and my family different? So I appreciate you, and your light can be felt 1,000% around you.
Thank you. Thank you. And I appreciate you for coming on.
Of course. All right, crew. I know that you did get value from this one. And what's your social media, or should they go Focus 3 for
yes,
social?
Focus 3 for now.
Okay.
Yep.
So what I want you to do is I want you to take one tidbit of, wow, this is the thing that hit home, or one quote that Jennifer had of, man, she might drop that. And I want you to screenshot and send it to Focus 3. Post it on your social and tag Focus 3, because whenever we're doing this, I know for me personally, we don't get that quick feedback of, oh, this hit home. And it personally feels great when we get that feedback, but then also it's very helpful for us to understand, wow, what actually hit home with somebody, that we can continually talk about that and just be able to give value there. So thank you for your time. As always, continue to seek the edge of your comfort zone. And if I've learned something from this, it's also to, at the end, edit and audit what's going on in your noggin and allow yourself to rewire what those thoughts are. And that will determine a different outcome for you. So have an amazing rest of your week, and I'll see you soon.